Yeah. Uh, and then again, he went like on the Prince and all this stuff. It was like it's weird. Like I'm thinking like that Prince. Like, why would you want to pay him? Like, why boys? Then I'm like, I want to ask him. I'm like, this is not making sense. Like, why boys that old and why and he's saying 100% because at that point I'm believing everything he's saying because it's these accurate things. The guy like it's like he's like a matrix or something in his head. He's just anything he would refer like right to the number and he'd look and I it blows my mind and it's just like I'm like did that Prince like and he says oh he's a Canadian born. I'm like well, fuck we don't have like princes like here and he's like, oh, he maybe like he's maybe half Canadian, maybe half this, but like he's from here. But he's like, how would you know if he's a prince or not? Like, he's like he said he uses normal things and stuff like that. I'm like, you're talking more like on that's not a prince. I, I'm like thinking he's like living in the past, and he's like, of course, okay, a prince with life nice, yeah, he'd do this and this and this and this. And like then he started, oh, like I play with this prince and blah 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 and this, and he went good there. I'm like looking at that, like what fucking kind of prince is that? Is this, and how is he gonna afford all these people? And how it's like 100% like guaranteed, and like I've never heard whatever. He said to me, he's like, oh, you could do. There's the thing in the clinic. There's AIDS too, but it's not going to be done uh, just in special cases. I'm like, what do you mean special cases? And why? Like, AIDS and something to be pure? There's no way on earth. He's like, to me, he said to me, like, oh, gays die. Like, what? He said, unless they got the AIDS, let's say by birth or like, or by from a toilet seat or something, by an act of no sin. At that point, I'm like, that person in front of me is everything, knows everything, whatever. I'm not thinking there's any doctors, there's any whatever, but we'll get to that later. But, like he's just whoever I think he is, and he could do everything by himself, and that's it. It's just that's it. It's happening. And they said Christ is coming back on such and such. Like he is Christ. That's it. He's Christ. To me, in my head, I was fully convinced, and I haven't like spoken to anybody about it like until now, because just the more I thought about what happened, and now that the time's coming closer, and he said there was doctors and stuff like that involved, and he won't say names and blah 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 blah. Anyways, somehow I happened visiting, him somewhere on that, and there's like doctor with like a the car was like $1 million. I've never seen one like that. And he's the doctor talking to that person, like with very highly respect and stuff. As even worse, it's like that doctor's like less than a servant to that funny guy, shall we call him? Funny, smart, like, and he was like arrogant with that person, and he's just like even telling the doctors things about that and this, and the doctor's like, oh, right, then it's 100%, and he's like, well, next time do not negotiate me or whatever. Like he's talking in like a totally different manner, as like if he's an older person or a doctor, or whatever. And he said the equation could never be wrong because there's nothing called 99.5%. He started talking like when the numbers started, like decimals and this, and just like blew my mind and the doctor's mind, and but the doctors, of course, is understanding what he's doing, and it worked, and the doctor's so happy, and this. But then they were saying, oh, the capacity is going to be little and all that, and I'm like, of course, one prints, like, you can't pay much, and the government is not going to pay for that. And I'm like thinking, why is the government not going to pay for it? If you could prove it to the government, like, why they're not going to pay for it? He told me it's just stay like that, son. I'm like, what? He's like, just stay like that. He's like, you don't want to know things. I'm like, we are the best government in the world here, man. Like, he's like, like, if the government is not going to pay or whatever, they don't have the money, or he's like, oh no, they were even offered that whatever government can afford to pay, that prince will pay. I'm like, who is that? Prince is like large, man. If the whole country has cancer or whatever, uh, and he's gonna pay the rest, is just, and still denied or whatever. He's like, oh, there's a lot of politics, but one time comes, uh, he'll force them to. And like, I didn't pay attention to the wording. It's like he, you know. And at that point, because of what he's saying, I'm like even scared to say who is like he, or at that point I don't want to know anymore. But what on that? And he's like, oh, you should make something about that and tell people, because we're just gonna use a word to mouth, and this the capacity is small, and word to mouth we know, and whoever's meant to be cured of that, well, but it's. I went back to the AIDS thing, and I said, he said, unless it's like I said, he said birth and blah blah blah. So to me, I'm like taking it religiously or whatever. And he didn't say like fag or whatever. He said Mother Nature. That's what it is. Gays die. That's it. They're not going to get this. I'm like, even if the gay has the money, like they're not gonna. And then he said to me something. He's like, money. he, he he said the money's the garbage of this world. I'm like, what? It's like I'm like, you can't eat without it. How you can tell me something like this? And it's like people say like God will give you and this, and for some reason he said to me, don't say. What did he say? Yeah, he said it in two languages. He says, do not say things on God that you don't know about. And then he said, like that. What's that word? Yeah. لا تقولون على الله ما لا تعلمون. Which is, don't say on God. He's like, God does not believe in money, and he's not about to budge to the devil to use the money. And the system that is done, it's like when you think about it, it's really free. There's being trade on all that, but it's just because how Earth is running. It's like that prince is how whatever unlimited on money from what I understand, and just to whatever, and but if unlimited on money and all that stuff, and and he said a weird story. He went to buy a shoe, and he was like arguing and like dollar and cents and like unlimited and paying that, and and he said one thing. He's like, how can you prove it's me, it's him, it's ye? And like at that point I started not understanding, but I'm getting freaked out, and he said to me something else. He's like, in the religion it says that there's other creatures on Earth that some people can feel, but we can't see. And he said they live like trees. I don't know, trees or something like that. I'm getting freaked now. I have to believe, and I'm getting freaked out, and I just have to believe because he's saying things, and they're all right. And that God made nothing less than perfect, but yet we're getting diseases on Earth and all that. And he says this land is synthetic. So therefore, he says, if you make a car and you put it on pavement, it's gonna work good. But you throw it in the water, it's not gonna work good. And he's like, human beings, just the same. No, he's like, not like, it's like, just give me an example to understand. So it made sense to me. And he's like, why do you think we live in areas that are so cold that we don't need to? He's like, don't you think that maybe some people are